Jackson gave me the news of a planet far away. And Colonel O'Neill will assemble a team that will try to save the day. Dr. Sam has a master plan and a science attitude. And the Jaffa Teal, he's part of the deal with his trusty Goa'uld. It's just a regular day at Stargate Command, and it might be hard to understand.
Chevron 1 encoded. Chevron 2 encoded. Chevron 3 encoded. Chevron 4 encoded. Oh no, this is gonna happen. Chevron 5 encoded. Chevron 6 encoded. Chevron 7 what? We have a stable world.
Welcome back, everyone, to Three Fresh Short.
What?
I'm your co-fresh, Sarah.
I'm Cristina, and we've just blown our guest's mind. We've just blown it. So I'm Cristina. I'm your other co-host.
I'm your co-fry, Rebecca, and we have with us today a very special guest, Akie Bermiss.
Woo!
I have never seen the graphic before.
Yeah, isn't it great?
Blown away. What the? That was crazy.
It's on our YouTube channel, just the intro with the graphic.
That's
I got silly when we decided to start doing the video live stream thing and was like, it needs to be the most ridiculous, epic looking like monolith of our Fry logo as possible. So yeah.
I'm telling you, it's like the SpongeBob episode where the Krabby Patty starts off like way in the distance and it like comes closer and closer. Only our music is much better, which is where you might recognize Akie's voice from. Possibly. He wrote and performs our theme song.
Yes, it is infamous. So
officially, from all of us, we cannot thank you enough for doing that.
Like literally, I asked Akie, "Hey, can you do like a little jingle for us for our little podcast?" This is 2 years ago, actually. Almost, we premiered 2 years, almost to the day today.
Oh yeah.
Like maybe with like it's almost exactly 2 years, and then Akie drops that on us. It was phenomenal.
Okay, well, you asked for a theme song for a Stargate podcast, and I was like, all right, here, I think I can swing this. Oh, and I was only given the prompt. Three Fresh Short, right? That was it.
Yeah.
The reference to the episode. So I was like, okay, I'll see what I can. See what I can do.
He's like, I didn't come here to fuck around.
Yeah.
Like I remember hearing that and being like, oh, we got to take this serious.
You thought?
Like we can't have that intro song. Hi, Nell, by the way. Nell's with us watching.
Wonderful.
I remember hearing that and being like, okay, our content has got to match that caliber of like amazing, awesome ridiculousness. Like, we can't fuck around at all.
Literally, you can ask Akie how many times I'm like, hey, I need a song. I do it all the time.
It's one of my favorite things to get. Just a text from you out of the blue. It's like, I need a song about this, for this, about this long.
Hey, so at least I give you all the parameters. So
Okay, so I have questions, but are we doing any sort of fry boxing at all, or is asking Akie some questions our fry box?
That can be our fry box. Wait, we need to let's hop into the fry box.
Short, cause we're Three Fry Short.
Just so we can make him
It's official.
And he didn't just create a theme song. He went above and beyond and made those little bite-sized clips to like separate, if we need like a page break, so to speak.
It's the best.
So
an instrumental version, like all
all the goods. Okay,
acapella.
Okay, Akie, are you prepared to answer some ridiculous questions?
The answer is no, but I will do it anyway.
Okay, well, this first one is not, because this is a very serious one. I think everyone would love to know how you and Rebecca met. Where did that start? Can we get that in 2 minutes? 2 minutes only. I'm just kidding.
James Bagwell's Chamber Chorus.
That's it. Yeah, at Bard College in the early aughts.
The early aughts.
In the early aughts. Yeah, that's where we met, and then I don't know how we just was it through Steph that we realized our nerd love. Is that how it all?
Yeah, because then I was living with Steph in New York, and you would come over and we would watch Star Trek Voyager.
You know,
and eat chocolate cake
and pie
and pie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People still don't really understand. When I try to explain that, when I hear the Voyager theme song, all I hear is pie, pie, pie. They're like, "What?" And I'm like, "It's just too hard to explain." But I used to hang out for an entire weekend just eating confection and watching
binge watching Voyager back in the days of mailed Netflix.
That's right. We had to get all the discs together. Yeah.
Oh my god. I did a TikTok. I found a disc. I have a disc still of Netflix I never mailed back.
Wow.
Like I still oops.
Some fees
on to it.
are racking up, Christina. How much money do you owe Netflix?
Yeah.
No, don't tell
the
them.
price of the movie. I think at a certain point they're just like, just pay us for the DVD.
Just
like,
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they did because it never got returned. I'm sure they charged my account at some point. Okay.
So yeah, we met in college and we continued that friendship via our other really good friend Steph outside of college afterwards. So.
Through music and nerd things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Love it. The perfect combo. Okay, so then following up on that, so some may or may not know. So tell us a little bit about what you do now with your music. I know you're in a group. We'd love to hear a little bit about that. What genre? How many people in the band? Like, give us a little scope there.
Give us all the details.
All the details. Well, because people need to know who is Akie. Like,
we
who
need
is
the backstory.
Akie?
We need the emotional backstory.
This is great. Am I under oath?
No.
Great. Then I'll.
No, you can make it up. It can all be lies.
Well, I'll tell the truth as far as anyone knows. I basically mostly perform with this band called Lake Street Dive. I'm in that band, and we tour all the time, and it's pretty sweet. And I'm also in New York, where I usually reside. I just play sort of music all around town. And for a year before I joined Lake Street Dive, I was like playing solo shows, backing up other singers, being part of ensembles, teaching lessons, playing dance classes, basically doing anything I could to stay alive, essentially.
And be able to do what you want to be doing to do that. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So.
Oh wait, and there's 5 people in Lake Street Dive. You asked for how many?
Yes.
5,
yeah. I was like, you have not passed this question yet.
She also asked for the genre, the type of music.
Okay. I think people would call it like indie pop, maybe soul, indie pop, soul, indie soul pop.
Yeah. So I feel like soul's got to be included in that.
Yeah.
It is kind of hard to describe actually.
It's not really an easy genre to be like, oh, it's this. It's, but it's like if you hear it, you'll probably be like, this is cool.
They put on a really good show.
We do our best.
If Lake Street Dive comes to whoever's watching or listening to this, probably in the future, because Nell's the only one watching right now. Go see Lake Street Dive if they come to your town. I've seen them. I've seen you twice. With Lake Street Dive,
yeah.
Did you ever come to San Francisco? You guys ever?
Yeah. So the last time we were there, I think we were in Oakland.
Oh, that's by my house.
Basically. Okay, yeah. We were at the Fox. Is that a theater? Yeah. Fox Theater? I think it's where we were last time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. I have one final question.
Please.
The music in me. Sorry, because then we'll get out of this. How do I want to say this? What is your favorite? What is your favorite key and your least favorite key to play in? Foreman.
What a great question. My favorite key is A flat.
Mm-hmm.
I've never figured out. I've never thought deeply about what my least favorite key would be. Really hate to throw any key under the bus. Ugh.
There's got to be one that's scratches. You're like, no, I avoid that at all costs.
You know what I don't love is when a song is in any key and then people are like, let's do it in B. As a piano player, it goes from something very specific to something like B is so complicated with it's got a weird enharmonics and stuff like that. It just makes me crazy.
Okay.
It has all the black keys.
It has, yes.
All the black keys.
Yeah. But then also it has a sharp in it that doesn't belong. It's so bonkers. Yeah.
So I've played piano since I was 3. So I'm like, okay, I have to know because like only someone in that, and I saw you play keyboards and all that. I'm like, there's got to be like a cringy one.
Yeah, when someone's like, "Oh, the song's in C. If we could take it down just a half step,"
you're like, "No, we cannot.
No,
we cannot.
Absolutely not.
I think B.
Yeah. Nope. C is a nice, steady, safe one.
That's right.
It's nice and steady. All right, those were my music questions because I just had to like take that time to ask because it tells me a lot about who you are.
Oh, wow.
If you were gonna say B is your favorite, like you're a really complicated weirdo.
Yeah,
like,
if I was like, oh, B, F sharp, those are my favorite keys, whatever.
No. All right.
That's
Okay.
such a hipster answer to what's your favorite key.
I like a complex key that's like hard to get around in.
Yeah.
I apologize for that question for anyone who does not play music, but that just brought joy to my heart. Now I'm awake. Awesome. We're so excited to have you here.
I'm so glad to be here. Yeah.
Nerd and fandoms, just the best. All right.
So I have 2 questions. Actually, I have 2 questions for you, Akie.
Please,
the first is, what are some of your favorite musicians or songs that are currently out now? Like, what can you give me recommendations?
Yes.
Lay it on me.
Great.
He's like, yes.
I can give you recommendations. Okay. Number 1, Madison Cunningham. I don't know if you've ever checked out her music. She had a record that just won a Grammy, but she was on the road with us last year. Incredible guitar player, incredible singer and songwriter. And her album is truly beautiful. I still listen to it to this day. It hasn't been 100 years, but you know what I mean? I still check it out. To this day.
Still
hasn't gotten old.
It hasn't gotten old.
It's been 6
months. Yeah. Let's see. And number two. I'm going to do another person that we were on tour with because I just feel like they should get as much publicity as possible. Her name is Monica Martin. I don't know why there's so many M's, but Monica Martin, I don't think she has a full record out yet, but she has a couple of songs. One of them is called Cruel, and there's another one that's like super popular called Go Easy Kid, which, they're beautiful and fun and also heartbreaking.
Taking notes.
Take those
All right.
Following.
I shan't for
Yeah.
And then my other question for you, kind of segueing us into our podcast, what is your Stargate story? How did you find it? What are your fond memories that associated with the show? And maybe like, what's 1 or 2 of your favorite episodes?
Okay, so Stargate story is probably classic. I went to the movies to see the original Stargate motion picture.
An OG.
Yes. But
Akie and I are the same age.
That's right. We're the same age where this is before the internet, really, around the same time, before the internet was really useful. And you would just hear about a science fiction movie and you'd be like, well, we're going. And this had Kurt Russell and not David Caruso. Who's the original Doctor?
James Spader.
James Spader. And so I was like, well, we're obviously going to go see this. And I remember that movie being like, whoa, blew my mind. It just had like a perfect, and this is also pre like the popularity of, what do you call it now? Ancient aliens. Conspiracy theory. So this was like, so before, and then the pyramids, but then a gate, and then you need an archaeologist to understand. And I love movies where someone has to figure out a language. That's like if we're going to talk about like certain kinds of like tropes, that's a big thing for me, is when someone's like, we need a linguist to come here and be like, it's got elements of ancient Greek, but also blah, 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 blah. And they have to like figure out the language. And they're like, I think I can find a way to speak to them, when some colonel's like, tell me how we can tell them that we need to use that flag. And someone's like, hold on, give me 2 hours to learn their whole language. So yeah, I saw that movie. I probably rented it from Blockbuster months later. And then when the TV show came on, I watched it on, I didn't realize this for many years. I probably watched it on, it was originally Showtime.
It was.
Yeah. So like somehow I watched this risque hour-long drama on Showtime. And then I just followed it through I think the last 2 seasons I might have been at Bard, and I might have missed the season finale originally. And then I've watched multiple times over the years since then every episode of SG-1 Atlantis. I do a thing where I go, maybe I'll just watch one episode that I love of SG-1, and then I go, I'll start from the beginning, and then I watch 10 seasons of it, and then I'm like, well, now I have to watch I need a little bit more, so I'll watch the crossover into Atlantis, and then I watch Atlantis, and I go, okay, now I need a little bit more, so I'll watch Stargate Universe, which is really dark and sad in comparison to the other ones. But then when that's over, I'm like, you know what I need? Something to lighten the mood. How about a little SG-1? You know,
right back around.
It's just cycle. Yeah,
it is.
Was that Brad Wright's plan all along with
it must have been
with Universe? He's like, we're going to do this really dark, and then everybody's going to need to rewatch SG-1.
They're going to be like, you know what? I'm going to go back to SG-1 episode with the first episode, which is surprisingly dark and
it is
light on levity. Yeah, but yeah, that's my Stargate story. My favorite episodes. Oof. My favorite episodes.
Even
probably
your hums are musical.
Even my hums are musical. I love. There's like 3 or 4 episodes in the early like SG-1 series where let's see. I have to not get the actors' names confused with the characters' names. Where O'Neill and Sam are thrust together for some reason. Either it's when they have the weird clones that are in love, or it's the one where they like die or something. They're like imprisoned.
There's a
talking
couple
about?
of them.
Stuck on a glacier with MacGyver.
Are you talking about Beneath the Surface, where they are having to work in the
yes.
Yeah, I know that episode.
That's I love episodes like that. Even now, rewatching them now, I'm kind of like, oh, okay. But at the time, I was definitely like, this could be the episode. You know, when you're watching it live, you're like, oh, of course.
Are they? Are they not?
They're a military unit. They work well together.
So I have a very serious follow-up question. Are you a shipper? Do you ship them? Are you here for it?
You know, I would never be opposed to it. Back in the day, I was definitely I was fully bought into the conceit of the show, which is like they want you to ship those two. And I remember when they like tried to switch it to like Sam and Daniel had like a thing, and I was like, this is not as
they're like sibling energy. It was
I was like,
weird.
This is not a thing that should ever happen. Yeah. So yeah, I'm here for it, but I also appreciate that they sort of did the complex sort of like the off screen they can be maybe together, but on screen they never appear to truly have consummated their relationship. And then, you know, it just gets so
they're busy. They got shit to do, man.
Yeah, they're like literally saving the world. Yeah.
I think we all want, like, you think you want that like payoff. You think you want it in the show, right? And then but then you think about like, okay, so what? So okay, they get together in season 7. Now we have 3 seasons of like we have to add this relationship drama into it too. No, we're not gonna. We don't need to see any of that.
Yeah.
They'll inevitably have to break up and get back together, and break up and get back together. And I hate watching that. So.
Yes. It's always like once you cross that, when you like finally get that they're together, then it's like much worse when they're like, obviously they're going to have to break up now and they get back together.
Yeah.
So one of them gets kidnapped and whatever.
All the tension is lost. Yeah. Agree. So getting into our episode, we are talking about tropes, different tropes that we see in Stargate. So I kind of came up with like a little outline. What is a trope and why do we care? So just a brief internet definition. The word trope can refer to any type of figure of speech, theme, image, character, or plot element that is used many times. Any kind of literacy device or any specific example can be a trope. Most often the word is referred to tropes that are widespread, such as irony, metaphor, juxtaposition, and hyperbole, or themes such as the noble savage and the reluctant hero. It must be used multiple times to be a trope, but it is also possible to talk about something that is a trope in only one novel or one author's works that is used many times. Trope can be also used as a synonym for metaphor. And then they kind of go on to say, in this article, we will talk about blah, blah, blah. But that's what a trope is.
Sarah, that was some very quality research you did.
Truly,
Giving it a goog. That was actually.
I did a lot of googling. A lot of googling was done.
Googs were given.
Sarah is our what would we call you? Not the historian. You are the
Googler. I would.
Sarah puts all of our episode notes together.
Oh yeah. That's the whoa.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Whoa.
She doesn't play around.
I didn't come here to fuck around.
And this is me taking my notes as we go.
Yeah. I was like episode notes. I have like some things in my and some things written here. Like that's how I prepare.
All right, we got Akie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So let me pose the open-ended question. Why do we care about tropes? Why are they so interesting to us? What are some interesting tropes for you guys?
I think we care about tropes because we like ultimately as human beings like some familiarity. And so we like to feel that with, you know, a new show or something. Also as a creative, it's just an easy way to apply, you know, a plot or something to whatever world you're working on. Maybe considered lazy, but it doesn't matter because people enjoy that familiarity with them. I would say.
I think on some level, tropes are like this universal human, or can be like a universal human experience. So that's why they resonate so much with us, and that's why they can be reused over and over again, and we're kind of forgiving about it because it's like, well, we just like this story so much, like we'll look past it. Other times not so. Like there are some tropes that are reviled amongst many communities, so not all of them get off that easy, but there's a reason why they endure. Somebody out there likes it.
Well, I think of that gosh, like the romantic tropes, like is like a big one that rises to the top. Those who like sit there and like watch like romantic movie after romantic movie, there's like a same trope that they want to fall into because they do see that correlation in their life because they're just gone through a heartbreak. They see that like against all odds love coming together, and like that is one of the most addictive tropes that people get into.
Yeah.
You should
and like
see
why
Bonnie's
like so well.
You should see Bonnie's Christmas romance watch fests every year.
Hallmark.
She knows the plot. She knows like the plot to the entire movie. She'll sit down and watch it, but it's almost like it's similar to like why we like to rewatch things, you know? There's no anxiety involved if you like know what's going to happen. That's very comfortable. So
I like to think, and so tying to the Hallmark thing, one of my dreams is to one day have Hallmark ask me to write them like movies. I would love to write. I know I've watched so many of those either in a hotel room because I was like, and then you sort of get sucked into it. You're like, okay, well, now I have to see hit all these beats of the trope that I know. So part of it is that you're like, I like to think of a trope as like a recipe. And you sort of know the recipe for like cookies. And you're wondering, okay, well, how are they going to change it up? Are they going to use butter? Are they going to use heavy cream? Are they going to use chocolate chips? They're going to use chocolate chips and sprinkles? That's insane. You can't make a cookie like that. So that's sort of how I appreciate tropes. And then sometimes, they can be a little bit like if you're hanging your whole show or story on a trope, it can be a bit of a drag. But if you're like, know that you're utilizing tropes, or that sometimes tropes are sort of unavoidable just in the way that we tell stories, but you can like subvert them in certain ways that can be very satisfying. So I think that's why we like tropes. It's like something to cling on to. And at the end of the day, we all love cookies, you know, like, someone likes a sweet, and if someone's like, well, I figured out a whole new way to make cake. You're like, why would you do that? We have a thousand ways for figuring out how you put cakes together. They're vertical, generally round. If you're like, I put the icing on the side, and you take there's sugar and flour, you throw those in your mouth, and then you're like, why would we deep the cake thing?
Yeah, that's a really good explanation.
Yeah,
or kind of connection between it, because that makes a lot of sense.
It's
a
like
recipe.
Tropes are just the OG. Like we've got like memes, trends on TikTok. Like that's all the same sort of. Oh, this person did it this way, and then this person did it this way, sort of thing.
Once upon a time, or was it Dark Stormy Night? Those are all tropes.
Yeah, Akie, though, your Hallmark movie dreams sound very, very similar to my really crappy sci-fi channel movie dreams of Squirrel, which have been explained on TikTok lives.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I still have that audio.
Squirrel.
Squirrel.
There's a deep desire, I think, as you said, we're the same age, to like be glorified in basic cable somehow, and that's I fully empathize with that desire.
Yep.
Oh, okay, you're not that well. You Taurus. I forget, Sarah. You're a lot younger. I forget.
Sarah's the baby.
I'm 31.
Just a baby.
A baby.
Just a baby.
But you know what? She was watching Stargate on TV before I was, because she had
8th
that
grade
sweet,
me
sweet
was-
Dish Network. So
Oh yes.
8th grade me was foaming at the mouth when Threads came out. I was like, "Who's dying?"
But that's like the beauty is like this Stargate has been in like Sarah's life. Her life, it has been there. Where like same like where I discovered it later. Like I had already gone through my childhood and then gone through it. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
That was a good question around the tropes.
So we all researched our own tropes. We have no idea what tropes the other is talking about.
It's true.
So it's going to be a surprise, a live reaction, if you will.
We'll see if anybody has the same tropes. It'll be interesting. But there's so many tropes to choose from.
It's true. Truly true.
There are. Does anyone want to go first? I will volunteer to go first because
we could round table it, or we could all dump one at a time. How do you want to do that?
Doesn't matter. Because we may have similarities. Like,
let's go around. So
okay.
So like name your trope, talk about it,
and then we'll get into each trope. Okay.
Really?
Would you like me to kick it off?
Sure.
Go for it.
Okay. So I was thinking a lot, and essentially my tropes are all centered around character deaths. You know that TikTok sound, dumb ways to die, 1,000 ways to die. All of my, I did a lot of research to find out, because there's a million ways to kill characters off. And I did write a lot of this stuff I wrote myself, so I did not copy paste.
Okay.
Very proud of myself. So this is kind of the overview that I have about character death.
Sarah, you are going to have to drop me those notes of yours, because I have to.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll get
that on Patreon, because that's good.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
So character death it's a pretty broad subject in film, TV, and literature, but character deaths can be broken down into many ways, which can be tropes in and of themselves. So all of my tropes for this episode revolve around killing characters off. Oftentimes in media, a character's death can be symbolic and have a greater purpose to the story or theme. Think of a mentor character dying, thus signaling our protagonist that it is time for them to face the fight or antagonist alone. With the mentor gone, they can fully step into their power and take up the mantle left behind by the mentor and fight the fight. And the final fight has more weight to it, pushing the protagonist to fight for justice or vengeance, as well as whatever the main issue was in the first place. Some of the most memorable parts and stories revolve around the death of a character. Mufasa in The Lion King, Jack Dawson in Titanic, Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars, Bruce Willis in The Sixth Sense, and even Old Yeller the dog.
Wow.
But with so many ways to die, there can be a lot of ways to get death right and terribly, terribly wrong. So I compiled a list of deaths from Stargate that embody 4 to 5 different death tropes. It's not a comprehensive list, and there are many more ways to kill off characters.
I gotta sit up now.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah. I didn't know we were coming to a TED Talk. Let's do this.
But this is just what I observed in SG-1. So that is my intro. I'm talking about killing peeps off. I'm ready.
Killing peeps off. And this is why Sarah goes first.
Wow.
Sorry.
Oh, wow.
But let's go to the polar opposite. I will now jump in and balance out that preparation scale. So my tropes that I wanted to focus on, so a lot of mine has to do with deaths. So I went down 2 roads. So I first went through like tropes that need to die. There's a lot of like overused tropes that just like the recipe's been done in that analogy. And like, so I kind of compiled a list, and there was a Reddit thread that kind of went through them. And the other part was overused tropes in sci-fi. So just kind of narrow in. So thinking about the immediate world threat and the like out of nowhere rescue, like that trope in particular is something that it's that, like, whether it's magic, whether it's science, whether it's just like random alien technology that we happen to stumble upon, it's just always in that like 11th hour.
That good old Deus Ex Machina.
That's right.
So that one was pretty interesting because we do see that a lot in Stargate. Trying to think through, there's always that 11th hour. We pull it out, like something happens,
and then in
so
great
much.
Stargate fashion, we get no denouement at the end of the episode.
No.
And it's just like credits.
And
We
done.
did it.
And done. And then the other thing with, like, in the conversation about death is the like overdoing of like the like what is it, like the fake out death, the like they're dead.
Yeah,
But they're dead, but they're not dead. And like this whole like anyone can live forever, anyone cannot. And again, that was specifically in like Stargate, and like the amount of ways they chose to like fake a death just to let the character live, which is what made it even more heartbreaking when one of our favorite characters died in Heroes, because she actually did die, didn't come back, and of like all the ones we wanted. But then we get Daniel, the archaeologist, who like constantly keeps coming back and forth as it's convenient to the storyline.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's an overused sci-fi one as well. Is just this like back and forth. And I'll just give one other one, is just like the bad AI, the like, oh, and like what we're living in right now of like, oh, AI can't be bad for us. AI can't be, robots aren't actually going to take over the world. Oh, they took over the world. What are we going to do? Like that trope is like
very Black Mirror.
Yeah.
Now that we're living it, I'm like,
now that Chat GPT is writing cheesy Stargate stories for us.
Wow.
So like,
I love it though.
So that's kind of where my tropes went into. Like I've got more, but like in general speaking about like what's been overused, what's been played out, like what just becomes like at the end of the day, like you can't do anything more with it. You can't mix up the recipe anymore. It's just been done. So, but sci-fi keeps trying to mix it. So those were for now what I have to discuss.
Lovely. If we're going around, I assume I'm next.
Sure.
Okay.
It doesn't matter to me.
I have no idea. Okay, I thought we were doing this.
We just clockwise. We're going clockwise.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. I'm nowhere near Sarah's level of sophisticated. I mean, I wish I had known that I could write a short, like a paragraph introduction. I would have gone completely off the handle. But here we go. I have. It was already listed in our little group thing, but I thought Noble Savage was an interesting one to deal with, especially with Stargate, because it has levels there. Because Stargate not only has like the Noble Savage of like Teal'c, being like, which is like a start. So then we were talking to, you mentioned in your discussion of what is a trope, and tropes being specific to like a show or a franchise. I feel like part of the Stargate sort of like franchise thing is to have like 3 humans and an alien who's got that Noble Savage wisdom, weird, like witchy vibe to them.
We call that common space person knowledge here.
Yeah, of course, we all know about the existential threat to all planets, which you didn't know, even though you have cell phones. So that's one. And I also love how Noble Savage is flipped, because the humans, our main protagonists in Stargate, are often like the mid-season or season end story arcs are often in SG-1 are like, there we found evidence of one of the ancient races and maybe we can get them to help us. And to them, humans are sort of these savage creatures, and like I love the condescension of the Asgard throughout, who are like, I don't know if we're gonna give you our versions of cell phones or our versions of whatever, because we're not sure you're able to handle that. So that's one thing, the Noble Savage concept. 2, I love the military versus civilian conflicts, which are done, I think, generally super well in Stargate, because it is so much of like even from the movie, it was like, it's a military operation, and they brought this scientist along because the scientist sort of had figured out how to make this thing work. And there's always that towards the end of SG-1, what makes it so like so wonderful to watch is that there's not towards the end, because then O'Neill leaves and the new guy shows up, and that's complicated in its own way. But the original team becomes such a family that there's often not the same conflict as there was early on, because it's not like O'Neill being like, blow it up, and Daniel being like, no, you don't understand, and Samantha being like, wait a second, don't you see and Teal'c's like, I don't know. I love that, like, it's the brass and the IOC. Is that what it is? There's always like
the oversight,
the oversight committee, and they're like, who wants to do what? And then when we talk about all this, like the season ender, like the Earth is under attack, they're almost here, like having to figure out what solution. Should we do a diplomatic solution or should we blow everything up? I don't know. So let's see, military savage, noble savage. I have hidden. I don't know how to describe this. I wrote hidden cult, but what I mean is there's like a trope in pretty much every sci-fi like episodic thing where you go to a planet, everything's cool, but it actually turns out something terrible's happening. The children are being used as batteries for the computer or whatever, that kind of thing. I sort of hate, sort of love those episodes where like, but I can, you're like, how many times are you going to go to a planet and be like, everything here is cool, we should just get out of here, before you're like, wait a second, should we move this cupboard and see this secret passage that leads downstairs that shows that they're whatever weird secret thing it is.
Akie, you're stirring up my Strange New
I'm
World
sorry.
trauma.
Okay.
Strange New World trauma.
Girl.
Exactly.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah.
Like,
yes. I'll start with those three. So
Nice.
military versus noble savage and hidden cult, for lack of a better word. Hidden or Phantom Menace, if you.
I like it.
I love it.
Oh yes, I love it. These are
So-
some good starting ones.
I chose three that are, to me, I chose three that I see very clearly in Stargate and very clearly in Star Trek. Having grown up with Star Trek more than Stargate. So I put one on the main notes, which is the Groundhog Day episodes. Like,
Yeah.
there you cannot have a sci-fi show without a Groundhog Day episode.
Yeah.
I have not seen one to date, like that doesn't have one.
Yeah.
Including Xena Warrior Princess, one of my
That's
favorites. So that's one that, because I love it. I love time travel trope stuff anyway.
Yeah.
And back in the day when I was like, I want to write a book about time travel and sci-fi, a whole chapter was going to be like just on the Groundhog Day thing.
Yeah.
And then I have one for fake memories.
Ooh, yeah.
Which, speaking of beneath the surface, that's why I had that on hand ready to go.
All right.
And yeah, there's like a specific Voyager episode that I would compare for that too. And actually, interestingly, they came out like right around the same time.
Ooh, yeah. Well, it's Hollywood.
But yeah, those fake implanted memories, one way or the other, really like that. It's always fun to deal with. And then the big one, the big one to me, because I think it's so strong of a trope that I just think that it's there in things that probably it isn't. It's, as far as sci-fi which is the alien, the non-interference clause, the prime directive.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, I will watch something and I'll see somebody like fucking some shit up on a planet. I'm like, they're not paying attention to the prime directive. Like, what? Like, it's just like, it's like built into my brain at this point. So, yeah, those are my three. They're all very heavy, Trek influenced, but
I just want to jump in and say that I also, when I see modern shows where they don't care about the prime directive, I'm like, no, you can't.
Like, there's this
just go save people. Yeah.
There's this like unspoken rule we're all supposed to be following.
In my head, I'm like, I don't care what your story is. You don't go to a culture that's less advanced than you and start showing them how to use.
It's wild, right? Like, it's just like expected
that's
like
what
it is.
Emotional thing I have. Yeah.
But what about the prime directive?
Oh. Okay, so none of us had the same tropes.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I might have some similar to yours, Christina, because some of the stuff you were talking about was like, oh, okay, yeah. Well,
I have one I left out. We'll get back to it in a
into
minute. Yeah, go to your 10.
So the first death trope that I have is what I call death is cheap. So This is when a character dies, but they don't stay dead. This is often used for shock value, and it can honestly come across as unbelievable because in ye olden days of television, it was unthinkable that one of our main characters would be killed off. So we would see a main character die, and we would approach it with like a healthy amount of skepticism because we're like, they can't die, like they have plot armor, they are the main character.
Yes.
So they always find a way to come back from the clutches of death. However, when we entered this golden age of television, kind of starting with The Sopranos, no one had plot armor anymore, and anyone and everyone's number could be up at any moment. Think of Ned Stark, Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So generally, the 90s, for the most part, was a simpler time, and these fake deaths were woven in to kind of up the ante. So how does that apply to Stargate? There were many examples that I found, and there's probably more. So the first is in season 1, episode 8, The Nox. All of SG-1 are shot dead in the opening sequence of the episode, only to be revived by the Nox in the following scene. So, like, we see the whole team get shot, and we're like, oh, yeah, I guess they're dead. How will we carry on now? Like, we know they're not actually going to die.
Yeah.
In season 2, episode 1, The Serpent's Lair, Sam, Jack, and Teal'c are left to assume that Daniel has died in the explosion that took out the motherships, but he's able to dial the gate at the last moment, and they have that big feel-good reunion at the end. So whoop, he's not dead. He fought his way back from the clutches of death at the very last moment. In season 4, episode 20, Entity, Jack must kill Sam in order to save the SGC from the entity that has invaded her body. She's brain dead and on life support, but they find her consciousness has been transferred to the computer at the last minute, and they're able to save her. And then various uses of the sarcophagus to just bring people back from the dead when it's convenient. Like season 2, episode 5, Need, Daniel was crushed in the collapsing mine and just brought back to life with the sarcophagus. So these are just the couple that I picked out alone. I'm sure that there are more. Even like Daniel being brought back to life after he like ascends real quick and then like descends again to avoid dying.
Yeah.
So I feel like that was a big thing, like in a simpler age of television, was like, well, we need to like shock people and like up the ante and make things more interesting. Let's like kill someone real quick and then just bring them back to life.
Just quickly kill them real quick.
Yeah, or like it also has to do with like time travel. It can be kind of interwoven in there where it's like, we killed you, but just kidding, we went back in time and we can fix it now. Right. So that's the first way. It kind of feels cheap because they bamboozle the audience, even if it's just for a moment, to thinking somebody died, just to be like, JK, like they're okay, you silly goose, we would never kill them. So that is my first trope, the cheap, fake, impermanent death.
Yeah. Even to even like Fire and Water.
Oh yeah.
Episode, like the whole episode, they're like, oh, we got to clean out Daniel's apartment and we got to do like he's dead. And that also applies to the fake memories one as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, like cheap
so
deaths.
So it can be either the characters and the audience can think the person is dead, or it can just be, you know, in Fire and Water, we knew Daniel was alive, but the rest of SG-1 thought he was dead. So it could be either or. But at this point, I think we're so far past that, I can't think of any of those tropes in recent memory being applied to, like, in this day and age, they'll just kill people off. They'll be like,
I don't trust any television show.
Yeah.
No, and I think whatever trust was in there, Game of Thrones
destroyed
that.
Yeah,
like
totally.
Literally nobody is safe. Like not even the most innocent of innocents is safe.
Yeah, so like you love this character, they're dead. Who cares?
They're done.
I will say that in the 90s, watching these now, it's like very different. But when you were watching them live with commercials,
yes,
it was like when you talked about the Nox episode, it's like they all died, commercial, and you go like, no, what do you think? You know, so that's like that was like a bit of like the meta concept of like, we got to keep them watching this show, got to keep them hooked on the channel, make sure they watch all the commercials. That's part of it. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead, please.
Well, it's just less prevalent in like a bingey thing now. I think in the bingier era of TV, where people are less likely to watch things like on network with commercials interspersed, the like hook is usually at the end of an episode. It's usually like maybe everyone gets shot at the end of the episode, and then goes straight to credits. That way you're like, you got to watch the next episode.
You got to immediately watch the next
so things have like shifted a little bit in terms of that. But yeah, like you say, you sort of are like, also now people will look at the credits. I'll be like, is Daniel Jackson really dead? Or let me just check out the credits for the next episode.
Let me go to IMDb real quick.
Yeah. No, it looks like he's out here for another 4 seasons. So
we're good.
We're cool. Yeah.
They were also able to market the episodes in specific ways because it was the whole every week release. So they drop like the trailer, so to speak, for next week's episode. It's like the corny voiceover, all of SG-1 are dead. Like and that's another way to like keep people. And that's one of the big gripes that I have about Heroes and the way that it was marketed. And I'll get to that. Don't worry. But like it was a way.
Are we gonna get to Heroes or what?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was a way to like you said, keep people hooked and coming back for more. And like again, back in that time, oh my god, it was inconceivable that one of our heroes would be killed. I need to see what happens. Like I gotta know, are they really gonna kill him? Like or not? So the marketing used in that pre-Netflix binge era was they bamboozled us to keep us coming back for more.
We were bamboozled.
So bamboozled. Okay, so diving into so that actually covers well like that part I had about the death, but the end of the world trope, especially because it's so like everything, especially in the beginning of Stargate, feels like they're always at the end of the world, no matter what planet they've lived on or landed on. But it's interesting because in kind of doing research into the trope, I never thought about, and this is just me because my brain doesn't work this way, and I know to everyone else they're like, well, duh, this is obvious. But the concept that this is such a sister to the dystopian, like after, like the apocalypse trope of like, so if they're written to, if the heroes are written to win, you know, then there's one way that'll play out, and that's the like 11th hour save the day, like coming in, there's going to be a miracle that happens. But the other part of it is that like, and that's a lot of what Stargate was in a lot of the episodes where like you pull something out of a parallel universe and make it happen.
Yeah.
But the other part where I think that exploring into the SGU version later on down the road and like other sci-fis and kind of where we're going with, I think about, actually when we were having the Michael Shanks event and like some of the movies that got talked about there about this, like the heroes didn't win, but a few underdogs survived, and then that plants a seed for that after effect and like the necessary like kind of balance of these two tropes. And this is where I am not the Sarah in this scenario because I don't take my notes. I have my thoughts on it, but we see it a lot. Like I think the first time in Stargate where we saw like the end of the world was when at the end of season 1 when Daniel went to he met alternate Sam, right? That was that one. Yeah. I don't know the names of the episode.
There but for the grace of God.
I got you. And the Gould were coming and like end of the world over there, and like from that they learned. There's such extremism. I don't know, Sarah and Rebecca, you jump in on that, but that just like stuck with me because then we see it again and again, like where we go to the planet and somehow we always tend to arrive right when it's their 11th hour. Like they're about to hit their demise, they're about to like blow up. There's a gravity pulling on the planet. We get stuck there, like, and we
accidentally fucked up their son. No.
Like shit happens. Whoops. Like the amount of like end of the world shit that SG-1 got themselves into was a little bit overkill. So in that mindset of like tropes that need to die, like Stargate did that one a little bit too much for my liking.
I agree that has been done to death, and now I like crave stories where the heroes don't necessarily win. That can be a much more compelling story to see like what happens next.
Well, and that's why I would like to see like, okay, so if you were to go back into Stargate and like maybe we didn't save the day on some of those, but like we were able to like, what does that dystopian afterworld look like? What does that look like when there's just a few, and how do we get through that? Because they don't do a lot of apocalypse style stuff. But that would be interesting for future Stargate.
That would be a really
cool
cool
the apocalypse thing, but it gets like it gets tidied up really conveniently by being in like an alternate reality or something.
Like it's not ours.
Get into the Stargate, go through a solar flare, go back 20 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
We're all good. We can fix it. Do over. So yeah, that's
I do like the heroes not winning thing because I think actually Stargate did it for some episodes.
Yes,
and those are some of the best episodes, like the one where the other side.
Yeah,
they literally like O'Neill literally had that guy essentially killed, like closed the iris on him.
Yeah.
It's like whoops, we
weren't
committed a war crime.
Heroes. Yeah, we weren't heroes in that one.
Yeah.
So like,
and that one. I remember watching that one. I know I've talked about this before, but I remember watching it for the first time and just sitting there thinking, like, what the fuck? Like, this is insane. Like, I was just like gobsmacked, and I was like, I must have like slept on this episode before because I don't remember it until like I was much older, like into adulthood. But yeah,
with the late great Rene Auberginois as the bad guy. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
is he a Star Trek guy?
He is
played Odo on Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
Indeed. Oh, Renee.
R.I.P.
You do remind me of very particular, like the idea that we're talking about tropes, and then every time you mention a trope makes me think of a trope.
Another one.
Pretty complicated.
A trope within a trope within a trope.
It's blowing my mind. I'm having like a beautiful mind moment here. But you mentioned season 2, episode 1, the name of which I forget. But I want to say that season 2, episode 1 of a TV show is its own trope, because season finale of season 1 is, especially in science fiction, is literally usually the world explodes. And season 2 episode, and someone dear is certainly dead. Explosion, no, right? And then season 2 episode 1, and I see this in like almost every, and now you can binge them. You're like, all right, well, I know when I get to the end of a season, I got to watch the last episode and the first episode to be able to go to sleep at night. It's like season 2, episode 1 is such a, like, they always shoot for the moon at the end of the first season. And then the resolution is, it can be great or it can be terrible. It can be like, everyone just shows up drinking coffee in the office the next day. Like, hey, you got out of that explosion? Yeah, I ran and I hid in the elevator. Blah, blah, blah. It's gonna be back. Or it's like that thing. It's like, you know, that the end of, well, oh God, this is really getting me into so many memes. But like,
love it.
Yeah, that season 2 thing of like the first 3 episodes, the team is apart and you're seeing their journey separately.
Yeah.
You're dying to see them reunite. You're like, you think I'll just get together? This would be great. Which, like, I can't even imagine. I lived through it in the 90s in all these TV shows, but now when I binge things, I'm like, I can't imagine going to bed for a week and the teams
right.
they're being like, I wonder how they'll find each other anyway. Yeah. Yeah.
I love the like what you were saying about the sometimes they do it well and sometimes they're just like drinking their coffee cups.
Yeah, they all just show up.
Zero closure.
SG-1 made fun of that trope in 200 because they're like they're running on a planet and there's like all the like Jaffa and like everything in front of them. They're like, we have 15 seconds. How are we gonna get there? And it's just like cut to, wow, that worked out. Like, they're back in the SGC. Like it's
no.
But that's why it's such a great show, because it made fun of itself.
It makes fun of itself.
They knew they had to use these tropes and then eventually like just make fun of it, because otherwise how are you going to justify 10 seasons of just ridiculousness? At some point you have to be your own comedy for it. All right, who are we at next? Rebecca, right?
I guess it's me. Cool. I'm gonna address the fake memories one. Because we see it in so many episodes, but the 3 that I can really think of in SG-1, Fire and Water, The Fifth Man, and Beneath the Surface. And specifically Beneath the Surface, I like want to compare it very, very closely to the Star Trek Voyager 2-parter Workforce.
Great. Yes.
It's like literally the same episode. I mean, because, well, yeah. the reasoning for them having to have their memories wiped and be in this workforce are different. In Voyager, there's a workforce shortage. They need people. So they're just like going around picking people up off their ships, wiping their memories, making them go to this planet to work. And in SG-1, the like people are trying to survive an ice age. So they're like keeping all these people underground and like so very, very like the hierarchy, like status sort of thing with that one. But yeah, they do it so well. They'll use it to play around with like all of those will they, won't they moments. They did it very strongly in the Voyager episode too, when like Chakotay shows up finally. Yes. But like Janeway has fallen in love with this guy on the planet instead, and like it's this weird thing. And then in SG-1, it's just like, oh, well, there's Sam and Jack, but they're not. They're like Thera and I forget what his other name was. And Jonah. So Jonah, that's right. Jonah and Thera.
Wow. The thing is, I hate how viscerally I remember this episode. Like, I have a true emotional attachment to this.
You know why, though? Because this episode came almost immediately, very closely after Window of Opportunity, when SG-1, like the creators were just like, we're just gonna fully lean into this, like 100%, like go hard into this relationship thing.
Yes,
it's interesting.
Okay. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It's like 1 or 2 episodes after Window of Opportunity.
You know what other episode is kind of all about false memories is Divide and Conquer.
Yeah.
Oof.
That's all about like fake memories. It's just Jack and Sam didn't have any fake memories.
Yeah, but the whole plot device was about like implanted memories. Like, are you a sleeper agent for the Goa'uld sort of thing? So.
Do we not have a Xanax detector?
Oh God.
Yeah, so I think the fake memories thing is used a lot. I feel like there's an X-Files episode where something similar is used.
Oh, the Christmas episode. Where
Yeah.
Sarah, your mind is like the most beautiful mind in the world.
It's incredible.
Encyclopedic knowledge.
Everything that you guys are saying, I'm like, I quickly, that episode. It's like I had to read the first 2 sentences and go, yeah.
This is Akie and I on the side. Like, huh?
What? Yes, of course.
Yeah, but I think specifically, I love the comparison between Beneath the Surface. I really want to look it up because I'm pretty sure I looked it up before. And Voyager's Workforce episode.
I just looked that up. That's February 21st, 2001.
Okay, and then Beneath the Surface, SG-1.
Which came first? The chicken or
September
the egg?
1st, 2000. It's literally like
5
months apart.
That's bonkers.
So which one came first? Was
SG-1's.
SG-1.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I figured they probably were shot like at the same time though. Like,
oh, I'm sure. I was gonna say probably very closely filmed, and also it's just like such a great trope. Both of them took the elements of the show that they were in to make the trope work. And sometimes that can be like, again, now that you can watch 8 hours of Voyager, or like in my case 3 seasons of Stargate in 2 nights. It's like, I don't care if there's an episode where nobody's the real characters. I do remember back in the day being like, okay, that was a cool episode. What about the overarching story? Like,
right. Well, Workforce, especially because it's a 2-parter.
Oh yeah.
So it was like they made you stick with that for 2 weeks.
Yeah. We're like, when is Janeway going to get back to being Janeway?
Janeway needs to be Janeway and needs to get her crew home. Why are we stuck on this planet? Yeah.
She's in love with Joe Dick Bus or whatever. I don't know. Like, who cares?
It's just made us all really uncomfortable that Janeway was like, oh, I love this guy. I'm really comfortable. I'm going to settle down. We're like, that is not your role. That is not your job.
She would never do that.
Get home.
She's a captain.
Right. Yeah. So fake memories. I like it. It's a fun one to play with.
So I did have a section on the fridge and the shock factor death, but we beat that to death in our last episode. So if you want to learn about fridging, watch our episode on Forever and a Day. But the next one that I have is kind of combined into the forced death or an open-ended death. So a forced death, and I just made this up. It's a thing that happens. I promise. I'm not like completely bullshitting. A forced death is when a character is killed off due to off-screen issues. An actor wants to leave the show, they have been fired for some reason, or the actor themselves die, and the showrunners are forced to write them out of the show. This part fucking broke my heart. Listen to this. Mr. Hooper in Sesame Street. When actor William Lee died, the producers considered writing Hooper out and sending him to Florida to retire. However, they acknowledged that their audience was mature enough to accept death and made a whole episode about his passing. It was a bold move by a children's show, and the episode won a Peabody for that season. So, and I think I remember seeing a clip of like Maria talking to Big Bird, and she's like, "No, Mr. Hooper is dead." And I'm like, "Oh my God, he's dead." And I'm like a 30-year-old lady crying at this.
Gritty Sesame Street. In a very special episode of Sesame Street.
But like how powerful to have just taken that stance of like, you know what, let's just address it. Like let's create some emotional intelligence, and like
that's actually the most positive version of that trope era. Because again, going back to Star Trek Deep Space Nine with Dax, not only did they kill her because of issues, then they just like, because she was a symbiote, they just went, oh, here's the new Dax. Yeah. So technically,
her.
Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah. So in that case, it was very beautiful and respectful, and they used it as an opportunity to teach children about death, which was great. Like, it's Sesame Street. It's for little kids. Like, I thought it was such a beautiful way to honor that actor and create a beautiful piece of television for children. On the petty side of it, though, when Dr. Derek Shepherd, shocking death on Grey's Anatomy, came after Patrick Dempsey was sort of terrorizing the set, and he and show creator Shonda Rhimes were at each other's throats. So like there was some beef going on behind the scenes, and Shonda Rhimes was like, "Fuck you, you're dead." So that was another like off-screen issue that was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna kill you and bye. So that's kind of that forced, like they're being forced because the actor is choosing to go a separate way. The actor may actually pass away, or the showrunners are just like, no. Or, I mean, how many times have we heard of like people getting kicked off of movies or TV shows because they're like incredibly racist or go on like a tirade that's recorded and goes viral because they're like screaming at some poor crew person. So like they're like, okay, well, we're just gonna kill your character. Bye, girl. Like, you're out of here. So some of these deaths are very final, but then the show may also leave some things open-ended as a way to bring the character back seasons later. So obviously for Stargate, this was Daniel's death in season 5, Meridian. It's well known that Michael Shanks was leaving the show and wanted to work on other projects, so the writers killed him off. However, they killed him off in a way that was left open-ended. In the season 5 final scene of SG-1 entering the elevator, a strong gust of wind blows past them. Was it Daniel? The death was forced because Shanks wanted to leave the show and open-ended. He did reprise his role as Daniel in a couple episodes of season 6 as like a Force ghost mentor. And the showrunners were easily able to integrate him back into the show in season 7.
Force ghost.
Yeah, with the hood and everything.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Like,
poor
not even
Jonas.
pretending with that one. Yeah.
So
God, that just makes me think of like poor Jonas, like the amount. God, remember
Nemick, like, yeah, I bet he got
so much hate mail from Daniel Jackson fans.
Oh, it's true. Yeah. I like that little. Again, this is like now I can really appreciate taking that break from like the Michael Shanks, and it does like it kind of like agitates it like shakes things up for a little bit. From something that had become very, very familiar, and I honestly feel like it's part of the ability of the show to have so much longevity is that it probably was so hectic at the time, but they were able to like try and deal with so many things, kind of pulling people away from the show and still keep this juggernaut moving forward.
I just keep thinking of more and more examples of that, Sarah. It's like it's just all over the place.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of other times when people actually died, and I found some kind of article, but I was like, damn, that Sesame Street one really breaks my heart. Like, I need to include that one.
I would be done after that. I'm like, I need to
rest. I got
it.
Yeah, I'll do the rest of the alphabet on my own.
But
Yeah,
I
thanks.
but I know that there were times where characters or actors rather have died, and that's how they kind of like, I think in like the newest Ghostbuster movie that wasn't like the Melissa McCarthy one, who I cannot remember, please don't come for me, is it Harold Ramis? Who was the original guy in Ghostbusters where the actor died?
I think it's Ramis.
Ramis.
And he wrote it, maybe? Did he co-write it?
Yeah. He was kind of included in that last like Ghostbusters Afterlife movie where like his Force Ghost kind of appeared.
Force Ghost shows up,
I never saw it, but I had a feeling from the title that this was going to be like
Ghostbusters Afterlife.
I was like, let me guess.
Black Panther is a great example.
Oh yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my god, that was so good.
And like one of the first in the modern era to be like, we all know like this, we know this person has died, and we're all so carefully watching the like studio to see how they're going to deal with it.
Yeah.
And of course, you're not going to satisfy everybody. Like being like, okay, we're gonna honor his death in the movie. Then people are like, you should have made a different person. You could just recast them. Or if they had recast, people would be like, this is not great. So
it's kind of like it was going to be a no-win.
Yes, exactly.
At some point. But I personally love the way they handled it in Wakanda Forever.
Agreed. Agreed. And just real quick, Nell made a comment saying that Leo McGarry in West Wing was also a forced death. I never watched West Wing.
Okay, well, listen, I don't want to take this. This is a totally different podcast, but Leo McGarry is a character who died. He was like an older mentor character, chief of staff, and then the final seasons, he's like they give him like a pretty awesome story arc, and then the actor died, and so they had to like shift. They like made it so that the character had like a stroke or something, or was in a coma, and basically we knew as we were watching the show like this Leo McGarry's not coming back, but they had to like maintain this fiction of like, how's Leo,
oh god, it's heartbreaking.
It was
another one.
Oh, go ahead.
Another one that I was thinking, and listen, yes, I watched The Big Bang Theory. I know it's problematic, but hear me out. The voice of Howard Wolowitz's mom, because she was always off screen, like screaming in the background. The woman who voiced her died, and his mom in the show, then they like killed her off, and it was like really good that they honored her that way. I mean, thankfully Michael Shanks did not die. They didn't have to like force him off because of that. He was forced off because he wanted to be off.
He's very alive and doing very well.
He forced them to write him dead.
And he showed up in future franchises. Really, always like gave a nice little boost. It was nice to like see him on Atlantis a couple of times. He would, it would like tie the show together, but also like ground Atlantis, which was like pretty much Rebecca. Yes,
that's a trope. Okay?
What's the trope? What have you got?
The trope is in a series, like in a franchise, you bring the people from the previous show and you anchor the new show with them.
True. Totally
it's
true.
Star Trek.
Yes.
It's all. It's like I had the moment like you did.
Yeah, you had an aha moment. You had to honor.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, hold on a second. That's a trope.
Everything's a trope.
Oh gosh.
Everything's a trope. This conversation has got me thinking of the forced death. So for anyone if you like listener also, but I play Destiny, and we have Lance Reddick passed away. If you guys watch like The Wire, but anyway, he is the voice of Commander Zavala, so like a main character within the game, and he died like the week that this new expansion came out, and he's got a huge part in the storyline.
Yeah.
But what's so heartbreaking is that like we have to go through this whole thing, and his narrative's already been written, his voiceover's already been done. But in this season, a different character died. So now we have to watch him grieving through this gameplay of another character dying, knowing that he in real life has died. Yeah. So now it's like, it'll be interesting to see how they play that out. Speaking of this, like forced death, do they force death him, or do they like replace him? What happens? Anyway, so it just got me thinking about that. God, it's such an interesting because you have to handle it with such finesse if it is for a real life death in that scenario.
Yeah.
Going back to like the whole replace them thing. So for me personally, I will never accept Michael Gambon as Dumbledore. That was always Richard Harris to me. Richard Harris is Dumbledore, and they couldn't really kill him off in the movie because like he was still a character, so they had to replace him.
Role too.
Yeah, like they needed to replace him as a character. So like that kind of stinks when they can't like give them a proper send off, and it's like expect me to believe that's Dumbledore because that is not him. That's Richard. Richard Harris is Dumbledore.
Yeah.
So like it kind of stinks when that happens.
It does.
And they do have to replace people. And I hope for your game that they don't do that and they do give the actor like a proper send off instead of
I hope so.
But it's got to be done. It's like that season 2, episode 1 thing. It can't be like, hey, what happened to you? Oh, I went through like, now I'm like this. You're like what?
He is literally like the leader of like this entire, like, not to get, but he like, I don't know how you replace him.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you keep him either. So, like, because there's an entire, like, quest line that literally revolves under his direction that you can, like, pick up and do. So, like, you'd have to, like, you can't just delete it. Like, so it would be interesting. But anyway, on that, do you have any other of the...
No, that was it for the forced death or the open-ended. Will they come back from death?
So this kind of ties into actually the thought process of like my trope around the bad AI or the bad robot. So thinking about this whole notion of, so I'm actually just going to read this. This is not my words. This is from someone's article, but it says the use of artificial intelligence in sci-fi stories, it will never go out of style, partially because it's something that scientists in reality study and experiment with on a regular basis. However, it always seems when a robot gets too smart, too advanced, or too intuitive, that its definition of better than humans is always cruel and unreasonable. For some reason, robots tend to go the Ultron route when becoming more advanced than their human creators. However, if a robot was truly advanced, it would make more sense that they would be more reasonable, empathetic, and understanding of the human condition. Granted, that level of thinking would take quite a leap of faith to establish, but hyperintelligent does not mean an absence of understanding. And I thought that was really interesting because it always does go that like Ultron, end of the world, like dominance, like we should fear it mentality. But the truth is like if you became smarter, if better, it is more about peace and love. And so then I started thinking about not so much in Stargate because like, you know, like we think about like the replicators, like they're just absolute awful. But thinking about like Battlestar Galactica and this like concept of like, wait, like did AI become human? Did human become AI? Did robots become this? Like, or what's the beginning? What's the end? And like, what's the chicken? What's the egg? Like, wait, are we all just robots? Like, is this just robotic AI in flesh form? Because if you guys watch the show, like especially the newer version, like all the
we watched it. Yeah.
But like when they realize that like when Starbuck goes and like finds and she can integrate into the ship, and it's all like muscle in there, and it's like, wait a second. Yeah. And I thought that was such a unique, and I know others do it, but for a show to take on such this like evolution where it's not mechanical, it's organic. This technology or this AI has become so intelligent it has organic material. And then of course at the end, I'm not spoilers for anyone, you like oh, they've reached this earth, they've reached the end, and then they kind of destroy their ships into the sun to like go back to a simpler life, which is really just starting the cycle all over again. Like we become so intelligent that we become simple again. And then like you find out that like when they die, like that was actually like the first humans on this earth. Like that's like it, like they show it like, you know, thousands of years in the future, and they're like, so I just find that to be a unique manifestation of like that thought process of that trope of like AI didn't go bad necessarily in that it was bad along the way, but it didn't go bad. The peak performance of it just came back to simpler.
I just asked ChatGPT to tell me about the bad AI trope in science fiction.
Ooh, what did it say?
God.
Do repeat.
It did. It's mostly just saying exactly talking about how one of the earliest examples is iRobot by Asimov in the book. It says other notable examples, kind of explains it. But the funniest part is the last paragraph is like, the bad AI trope is often used to explore themes of humanity's relationship with technology and the potential dangers of unchecked technological advancement. However, it's worth noting that the portrayal of AI as a malevolent force is not necessarily an accurate representation of real-world AI development. In fact, many experts in the field of AI are working to ensure that AI systems are developed in an ethical and responsible manner. So it's like,
AI was
that's not true.
Yeah.
That's not true.
Yeah. Some self-preservation.
Seems sus.
Yeah.
But Cristina, remember in Stargate how the replicators were made? They found like the young android woman and she made them as her toys.
Yeah.
They were toys to her. They were just like Lego spiders and she couldn't control them.
And they do, but they also have that similar
like a
evolution too, like with the 5 and
they have this desire to just be
to replicate.
to replicate everything.
The ancient enemy of the Asgard. That's why they can't help us, which ties into one of my
perfect.
Well, it ties sort of into one of Rebecca's, but it ties into I like my flipping of the noble savage, which is the whole relationship that SG-1 has with the Asgard, originally with like Thor in that first Thor's hammer episode, which is super goofy.
Thor's wagon.
Then Thor's wagon. But it has that great episode with where O'Neill looks into, I can't remember the one where he becomes super smart and then he goes and he meets the Asgard.
The fifth race.
The fifth race, right? And he has first contact essentially. But the relationship with the Asgard is such that the Asgard are like, oh, sweet. Okay, cool. You're the descendants of like this race that we used to hang out with. A lot of us, like these ancient races, we used to kick it and we did a lot of stuff. And you guys are like our weird, like, not even like a young sibling, like a young like cousin, like just so many generations later. And we're like trying to hang, like, can we help? And like, so the Asgard give us like cool hyperdrive stuff, which almost breaks the show. But then because the Asgard are like, we'll give you 3 hyperdrive engines, it's like, okay, we only have like these 3 ships that can do super cool stuff super fast. But then the Asgard they're the ones who were fighting the replicators, right? That was the issue Thor had. So like that, we get pulled into fighting the replicators, which gives us a lot of those like season ender, like 4 billion spider robots are flying out of a thing.
That's a play on that trope too. The like, we need a stupid person to like solve this problem.
Yes, exactly. Wow, that really took me back. But
they literally say that.
Yes.
Like, O'Neill at some point's like, oh, so you need someone dumb. Okay, cool.
Cool,
like,
I got it. Yeah.
And then the smartest person in their group is like, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Like, are you sure you're dumb enough, girl? I don't know.
I don't know. They need a simple mind.
A simple mind. Well, so yeah, I guess I always appreciate. I feel like what Stargate did well with that, although sometimes it like gets into like could you just make more hyperdrives? Is like the idea that as much as the bulk of the show is the team going to like some planet that's mostly agrarian, occasionally has like some kind of crazy technology, but there's always like, oh, you guys are not doing racism right. We'll fix it. Democracy is this way. Hold on, we'll fix that. And hey, call us at SG-1 anytime you need us because we like you guys. But we can't give you our guns or our walkie-talkies or any medicine except for like emergency medicine. We'll show up and do stuff. So there's like that thing which we're so used to being like, yeah, that's right. That's how we should be with this because we don't want to ruin their society. And then when we're in trouble, we're like, Asgard, help us. And they're like, here's one ship. And we have some like parental controls on it for how you can use it. And actually, we're going to have send a guardian to be there and like make sure you use it correctly. I always thought it was like very well done in the show, even though it was frustrating to be like, this it seems like a ridiculous problem for an elder race to have, is that they haven't had time to make enough ships.
Right.
So, yeah.
That does tie in well, though, to the alien non-interference clause.
Right.
Trope.
Yeah.
And how it does, the Stargate universe does definitely deal with it differently than the Star Trek universe.
Right.
Because except for like the Q continuum in Star Trek, like the Federation is the most advanced.
Right.
Like there is nothing else.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Except for maybe in Discovery in the 32nd century or wherever they are. At this point.
Or I was going to say the somewhat abysmal, but I have grown to love it, Enterprise franchise.
Oh,
where
yeah.
they're like, Vulcans won't tell them how to get over warp 3 or whatever, because the Vulcans are like, we don't really trust you. Humans seem very emotional.
Right.
And, yeah.
I think it's interesting that it does like hit us so hard and we're like, why are you messing with that? Why?
Yeah.
Because on Earth in modern days, we mess with everybody like all the time.
Oh yeah.
All the time.
Like, oh, you know, we need some roots through Afghanistan. Let's just like mess with their whole like
100%
everything, you know?
Yeah, we'll give them microwaves. What don't you guys have? We have some cool stuff that you don't have, and we'll give you that.
Yeah.
And then we'll just what I don't know, whatever we're like what do we have that you guys might want? With no regard to like their culture or the history or the thousands of years that they've been there and what they might have.
But on the other side of that, is a non-interference clause even the best idea? Because I mean, look at how humanity has progressed. Look at the Dark Ages. Like,
interfere.
What if somebody had come along and been like, "Nah, dude, don't do it that way."
Yeah.
Like, just trust me. Don't do it that way.
Well, that's what I feel like the aliens are doing now. If like as we're getting shit like fucked up across the world, like I feel like eventually I'm hopeful that someone's just like, y'all are gonna start a nuclear war. Y'all have reverted back. You're just like, we're just gonna like scoop you guys up and like we're gonna I don't know, something's gotta happen. Like because we're gonna end up blowing up this world otherwise.
But that is a great question. What if we don't even have to really think of it this way, but if like in our sort of Middle Ages, and this is getting back to Ancient Aliens, but what if aliens had showed up and been like, you know what? Hey, what's up? You know, if they came out of a volcano or something and they were like, yeah, we travel through different worlds through this volcano. Oh, we have a medicine that can fix that thing that's been killing all of you in your 30s. It's just this, but we can't give it to you. We'll give you a couple and maybe we'll show you how to make it. Anyway, we got to go. Good luck for the next 3,000 years. So it would be like, would we be like, it is so great when you guys visit every 10 months or whatever to check in on us? And, you know.
So I was having this conversation earlier, actually at dinner with with John and the writer, actually about like long life, about how like back in the day, like people like 30, 35 was like people died off. Now we're living longer. And like I saw an article today or a TikTok of someone saying like it like some people we may start living to 145 because of medical advancements. And I'm like, and then there was a conversation around like, do we feel like this longer life is leading to more problems when it comes to political warfare because there's more time and more people like, and it was an interesting, like, I haven't gone down that rabbit hole, but I was like, oh, because like, I don't mean to say this way, but like, we're not turning over as quickly. Like we're staying longer. So we have more time to fuck shit up.
Right.
And we are fucking shit up. But like, could we also fix the shit because we're all also living longer? So now like, I have no commentary beyond that thought that just like is now like making my ADHD brain like hyperfixate. Like, oh my God. Like, it's so interesting because when someone's like, no, really, like 130, 145 is not unrealistic based on medical advancements. And I'm like, I'm not prepared to live that long at all.
No way.
Wow.
I am not prepared. What am I going to do in that time?
Yeah.
Aki, to your point, if a benevolent being came down in the Middle Ages and like cured the Black Death, my like jaded mind comes up with two possibilities. They would have burned him as a witch and be like, oh, you're evil, you're a witch. It would have created a really awful organized religion around this benevolent being, and then this benevolent being would have come back like, 3,000 more years later to be like, what the fuck did you do?
Like the Orville, like that Orville episode.
What they dealt with it better than like a billion other sci-fi episodes. This like interfering thing.
Well, and there was also that episode of the Orville where Seth MacFarlane and Kelly are like exhibits in the zoo where the alien people watch them as like a form of entertainment. They're not interfering, they're just watching them. And then the episode ends where like the Orville gives them like all this, basically like a Netflix like footage of all the reality TV for them to watch and entertain themselves on. So they're kind of just observing that way.
One of these days, I promise you, I will watch the Orville. I promise you, Sarah.
It's excellent.
Good stuff.
I will do it. All right, you guys keep the dialogue. I apologize. I have a time crunch with a kiddo, so I've got to do that.
Take care of the children.
The children's.
Indeed.
The one child. She's many in one. All righty.
Cool.
So I'm saying quick goodbye.
Pleasure
Y'all
to
keep
meet you.
Bye,
Cristina.
Bye.
Ah, yes. It kept us in the right order.
So, who did we leave off on?
Me, non-interference.
Non-interference aliens. Yeah.
Okay.
This is going to be a beefy episode.
I don't even want to know what the timestamp is now.
I have 125 right now, so it's not too
one
bad.
More.
We've gone long.
Trope. Again, I was going to talk about the fridge, but we beat that to death. So the last one that I have is the emotional death, or death done right.
Wow.
Because there's a correct way to do it. When a character is killed off in just the right way, it can make us feel sad, angry, and shocked in a good way. If it's a character we love, we want their death to mean something and not be cheap. Take Game of Thrones' infamous Red Wedding. When looking at the events that lead up to it, the audience can see the groundwork and foreshadowing laid out. Yeah. It may have shocked the audience in the first place, but it was simply not done for shock or cheap thrills. It made sense. A lot of people were really mad that Jack Dawson died in Titanic. Many internet videos were made about how he could have fit on the door.
Sure.
This could be thought of as fridging, like, oh, they fridged Jack. But I argue that no, they didn't, because he went out on his own terms. He wanted to like give up his space for Rose, and he was a fully fleshed out character. Like, he wasn't this one-dimensional thing to just kill off. But his death was necessary for Rose to complete her arc. He emboldened her to break free from Cal and the oppressive life that she was living and live on her own terms. At the end of the movie, we see that Rose went on to do all the things she and Jack talked about doing together, and his prophetic words became a reality. She died an old lady warm in her bed. Or, if you want to believe she just went to sleep and dreamed about him, I fully believe she died at the end.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, when it comes to Stargate, the emotional death was Janet Frazier. This death was final and devastating.
I'm still fucked up about it.
So, I think what makes Janet's death so realistic and emotional is the lack of tropes. And it kind of was mundane in how they did it. Stick with me. I know that's kind of like a bold statement to make. There was no coming back as an ascended being. There was no dramatic death scene where she choked out final words to a loved one.
Oh, thank God.
It was quick and violent, and no one could really stop to even grieve her in the moment because they were still under attack. That's realistic. Like, that kind of shit happens every day. It was masterfully framed through the device of that documentary crew filming. And the crew and the audience were left to wonder who had died. If I could change something about her death, it would be how the episodes were marketed. So here we go. The trailers and even within the episode itself alluded that it was Jack who died. It was known that RDA was in talks of like leaving and like dialing back his presence on the show. So it could have been a very real thing that they killed Jack off. So we were like really worried about that. In the moment, many people probably felt so much relief that it wasn't Jack who died. It took away some of the weights of Janet's death. At least that's how I remember experiencing it, because I was so happy that it wasn't Jack that like it kind of left me with like, well, now Janet's death doesn't really mean as much, or they faked us out to the point where like it didn't carry the same amount of weight. Although Sam and Teal'c's conversation about like how he, oh my God, breaks my heart. And the words that she speaks about Janet were so good. And I think this is a death that is done right. It is supposed to hurt, but like, that's just part of life, is death and feeling pain. And when it's told in the right way, and it's not cheap or silly or done for like a shock factor, it can have really, lead to really great storytelling.
I think you talk about, making everybody think that it was Jack first.
Yeah.
what I do like, and I don't know if I'm just considering this or just thought about it right now, is they do kind of like, if it is Jack that's going to die, the way it happens, it's this slow motion scene on the battlefield.
Oof, yeah.
Like it is actually the like,
That's the corny
that's
trope.
the corny trope,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So they juxtapose that with like this actual really real feeling scenario, and that just having that the documentarian there and talking about, you know, the wartime photographer and all of that stuff, and just like this meaninglessness of war sort of feeling that
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
end up getting, you know, it kind of the beginning with that like the slow motion Jack thing, it kind of shows how powerful ultimately the actual death is.
Right.
And they played that up in the, I remember so vividly because I was watching this like in real time as it aired, like in the 2000s, it would have been then, in the aughts.
In the early aughts.
They used the shit out of that scene of Jack falling into the dirt. Like, I can probably find a trailer online.
I think that's also though because they used a lot of pyrotechnics in that shot.
Yeah. They were like,
Gotta get
They
their
spent a lot of
money's
money
we
on
gotta
that
use
shot.
this.
Yeah.
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 There's like
so-
all the stuff blowing up in the background when he's like falling, and yeah.
So I think Janet's death is one that is done the right way, if you can like kill someone off the right way.
I thought, I mean, you know this. It's always, if somebody
Yeah.
asks me my favorite episode of SG-1, I say Heroes Part 1 and 2. And because I do like, it's not that Janet dies. That's not why it's like my favorite episode, but it's the way that they deal with like government secrets and wanting to keep like save like this piece of history, like so that maybe someday people will be able to understand like what these people were doing for everybody. And I just love the way all of that is handled in it, and media and journalism and, you know, freedom of the press and everything like that. So
It was a great framing device to
Yes.
frame like a major character loss around. Like, it was so unique. That's why like I feel like her death, except for that fake out with Jack, is kind of free of tropes, and it's realistic, and it's kind of like boring in a good way, where it's like you don't have that silly final scene of her like coughing up blood and like, I love you, goodbye, like that kind of thing. That would have made it so cheap and silly.
Right. And I also feel like that was such an original, even watching Stargate, that was such an original, like when you start that arc, you're like, oh, this is a different kind of show. It doesn't have the normal beats of an SG-1 episode. And yeah, obviously devastated. They like whatever. I don't think I was watching like, you know, commercials about the show then, so I wouldn't have known like what was coming up, like that they were teasing someone was going to die. But I do know that they picked, as you say, an emotional death done right, a character who was like just so emotionally tied into your feeling of like the feeling of family at SG-1, like the doctor, who's like rarely getting like, you know, main billing, but is always there, like telling you when someone's going to be okay, telling you someone's not going to be okay, you know, looking for you, like really this like a comfort person in the show. And to have them, A, you know, she was out on more missions at that point because of the war, and then B, to have her die was like really felt like a gut punch. So almost more than like, as much as we love Jack or Daniel or Sam or Tilk, there are like other SG teams, and I know they try to always be like, well, you're SG-1 because you're the best, which seems like a terrible thing to do for the morale of other SG teams. Like, you're SG-13.
That's like, it just makes me think of Gary Jones talking in Gate Tech, Sarah.
Yes,
when he's like, he's like, well, if you're on another SG team and you're out, and SG-1 has to come in, sometimes we just have to sacrifice you. Like,
wild. Yeah, that stuff. Like, oh, we're trying to get back. Oh, SG-1's trying to dial in. But yeah, I really feel like losing. Yeah, Dr. Fraser. It just really crushed me. I still think about that. The way it was shot, like you say, the cinema verite. Oh, and so what I was going to say is it did feel free from tropes at the time. I think since then that trope has been emulated in other sci-fi stuff a lot in order to like create that same. I think a lot of people who became creators watched that episode and were like, this is amazing. And
The birth of a trope, maybe.
The birth of a trope. Whoa, yes, I think it was the birth of a trope. I think people were like, "That's incredible to have done."
Yeah, the doc style, the cinema
Yeah.
verite style.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's, like,
Battlestar used
confusing.
it.
Battlestar used it. Yeah, yeah. They love to have like the reporter. I think they used it in the Expanse series. Yeah, it's become like a tool, like a trope, a part.
Yeah, it's probably we really like that because of the idea that it's this like crazy science fiction, but it looks like it's a documentary.
Yeah,
like it's
yeah,
that,
it's got that jerky.
yeah,
yeah,
we like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess like the other thing about Janet's death was like we had known her for 7 seasons. Like she was, like you said, she was like omnipresent. She was always there, even though she wasn't a main character. We had grown to like expect her to be there and love her through 7 seasons. So like it was like I think the only next step up would have been for like one of the main characters to die.
Yeah.
They gave her an adopted daughter even.
Yeah.
Like, there was a lot of emotion riding on that death.
Yeah, and I like the fact that there wasn't like take care of Cassie for me or like some corny like like it was so realistic in the fact that like it was jarring and violent and they couldn't even like mourn over her in the field because they were still like under attack and another guy was dying right in front of them. Right. So that it was so realistic in its portrayal, and that's I think why it felt so free of a trope. It wasn't cornified. So that's my last one. What else do you guys got?
I have one more. Akie, do you have one more?
Not really. We dealt with the Phantom. Did we talk about the Phantom Menace, the cult, the weird thing? I mean, it's a broad trope. It's just that the idea of like you go to a new planet, everything is hunky dory. Let's go meet the mayor. Everything's cool. Like
it's like that on the surface utopia. It's like, because of the trope, if it looks really squeaky clean, sums up.
They're like, no, we've never heard of the Goa'uld, or we've never heard of the Wraith. You're like, what?
It's like, what is it, like Captain Crunch? Like, whoops, all crunch berries. It's like, whoops, all war crimes. Like,
yeah. You're like, there's something funky going on here, and it's always like, okay, well, as they're heading back, like, cool, well, we made some new friends with the whatever. And then it's like, oops, actually, they stole your DNA or whatever. Something funky happens. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's the, I guess the best example in SG-1 is like, what's it? 2001, 2010?
Oh, yeah, 2010, 2001 with the Ashen.
The Ashen,
but then, like,
it's a great, yes.
Yeah, and then also the people from the other side, the space Nazis.
Yeah. We're fine. We just need it for, like, this reason. We need that heavy water, not for bad reasons at all.
Then, how many times has SG-1 accidentally committed war crimes or aided and abetted war criminals?
Boy. I mean,
a lot of times.
A few times a season, at least.
Yeah.
At least.
Which is why I sort of feel for the IOC. They're always like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah. And then, Akie, you were talking earlier about like how SG-1 would like go out and benevolently help like these poor lesser people, which kind of ties into the whole white savior trope. Like they were out there just being like, we will help you. We do things the correct way, or no, don't do democracy this way. It's done that way. Like they were very much like embodied that white savior and like colonialism theme and trope of like, or like, we're not the bad whites, we're the good whites.
Yeah, they were like good colonialists because they always showed up like, we mean you no harm. Yeah.
And it's like, yes, maybe the immediate 4 people in this group mean you no harm, but Earth is comprised of many governments that all have their own motives, and
they were often like, what can you offer us to here, we'll give this like beautiful urchin my rations. Hey, do you like chocolate, kid? That move, which always works.
Oh yeah.
And then like the Asgard were actually quite nice with their whole like, we're not sharing with you, but then the Tolan were just dicks about it. They're like, fuck you, you're not getting any of our stuff. To the point where like Jack steals something from them to like it's a whole thing. But they were jerks about it because they were like, you suck, like you are inferior to us and we are not helping you at all.
Is it bad that I find the Tolan refreshing because of that?
No, I like it.
Appropriate. They're like, there should be a little enmity there.
Yeah.
They're not going, oh, you're cute. Like,
Yeah.
we'll hand you like a little like the chocolate bar thing, right?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
they're not
They're-
like that at all. They're like, fuck off, kid. Like
you're no use to us.
Yeah.
The guy in the very first, I forget his name, but he was Jigsaw. He was such a hater. He was in the first.
Omok.
Yeah.
Omok.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Wow, pulling out all my trivia.
Yes. All right.
Omok. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, nah.
Cool. It's cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Are we on to my last one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's go for it.
Yes, ma'am.
I like my last one. I think it'll be a nice one to end on because
Great.
it is the Groundhog Day episode.
Yes.
And who doesn't like a Groundhog Day episode?
Gotta love him.
Did we have time loop episodes? Did we have this stuff before Groundhog Day?
I don't know.
I think we had some. I'm trying to think if like TOS Star Trek had some time loopy stuff. Never quite
like
so
the
much like repeating the same day, but definitely some time, timey-wimey stuff.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's stuff like that before.
Hold on, I gotta close my door again. Jasper just came in.
Okay. Here, let me give it a goog.
Give it a goog. Let's give it a quick goog.
Time loop.
Yeah, because I know we all call it the
True.
Groundhog Day effect,
We don't
I'm
call it the Edge of Tomorrow effect.
But Edge of Tomorrow is based on a manga, which was based on Groundhog Day.
Yes. Oh, that's true. I did read
And like
that.
her name is Rita, even.
That's right.
Like,
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, like that was just like I forget who wrote it. I don't know, the manga author or whatever, but like, I guess he just was really like, I really like Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Great
make it
idea.
sci-fi.
Yeah.
Oh
You
my
know,
god, this ad keeps popping up.
You
It's
have the
so annoying.
TNG episode where the ship keeps blowing up.
Yes. Not Tomorrow's Enterprise, but that, yeah, I think after Groundhog Day, they were like, well, this is a fun trope. And often now you'll see that in shows, like it'll be part of the cold open. You'll see like, blah, 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 everyone dies. And then like someone wakes up and they're like, let's back at whatever point you're, we're doing a Groundhog Day episode.
Supernatural did a time loop episode too.
Yeah.
Where
X-Files did.
Dean dies. Oh yeah, Monday. That was a good one. But I wonder, like, is Groundhog Day the origination of that?
Yeah, that's what I'm
specific
wondering
trope?
too. I know what Groundhog Day probably did with it, even if it isn't the origination of it, is adding that element of like that element of you're gonna have to keep doing this over and over again until you get it right.
Yeah.
And then inevitably in the middle of it, whoever's experiencing it, because you would go crazy, like just like Bill Murray just being like, I'm just going to take piano lessons until I'm an expert at piano.
Right.
And the same thing, like Jack doing the pottery. You know, they spend that time in the middle where they're just like, screw it.
I can't find anything conclusive. I did see a wild, I don't accept this as canon, but it was like a wild internet theory about Groundhog Day, how Ned Ryerson, the insurance guy, is the devil, and he is the one controlling the time loop until Bill Murray buys his insurance, and then that's what breaks the time loop.
Good Lord.
He is, and I was like, that, I don't accept that.
Ned Ryerson? So good. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it might take a little more research, or if anybody is listening or watching this down the road, if you can tell me, because I genuinely can't think of it very often in that sort of vein prior to Groundhog Day. So
maybe, and I'm just like spitballing here, maybe like an episode of The Twilight Zone back in the day.
That's
something in there.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Twilight Zone thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think we like that because we like the idea that we could, keep doing it over again until we get it right. Sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, it's just like a video game. It's like you keep like falling off a cliff with your character, and you get back to the start, and you're just, I can just do it again, and we can't do that in real life.
And also the whole possibility of like you can do whatever you want with no consequence.
Yep.
Right.
Because that is very tempting to think of as well.
Yeah. And inevitably, the people don't think about that until they're well into that loop too, right?
And they're going bananas.
They're just on board. Oh, we're gonna help Daniel translate this ancient, and then Daniel all of a sudden was like, I mean, I guess you could do anything without any consequence. They just immediately leave.
Great, I'm out of here. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it literally was the only way for us to get any sort of payoff with Jack and Sam too.
That's right. Yeah.
So
he was legit.
Yeah.
He retired first. He did it right.
Yeah. And
maybe
an effective way to do that. Yeah.
Maybe that was also an effective way to explain why they would never probably actually be able to get together, is to explain the fact that they are in the direct chain of command, so that doesn't work.
Right.
You know?
And
Exactly.
Jack is too good of a person, because even in a time loop where there were zero consequences, he still felt the need to make it legit and like put in his resignation and be like, I'm the only one going to remember this, and for it to sit well with me, I need to do it the right way.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's great.
Love it.
Yeah, I love a good Groundhog Day episode.
It does. I love the arc of humanity, which is, you're right. Like, it starts with like, I'm going to try to fix this so that it works, and then I'm going to completely lose it.
Yeah.
3 fries short.
Do my 3 fries short moment, which is, you got to have your dark tea time of the soul, and then at some point, it's like, once they've given up, so to speak, there's like this, you like, given the option to do anything, why not do good? Why not be wonderful? Why not be great? And that actually is like, starts to be the turning point for them to actually figure things out. But you have to like go through that, like, I want it to be normal, to like, oh, if there's no consequences, who cares? To like, oh God, everything's insane, to like choosing to be. I wonder, this Ned Ryerson thing, like, is it, if Ned Ryerson is the devil creating the loop, is this like the last temptation of Christ kind of deal, where it's like,
that's
I'm
why,
gonna make you like, and like, it's like a bet that the devil had with God or something, or it's like, this guy's gonna go crazy, he'll never do good stuff, and then he
like
does.
a Job.
The devil's like, I bet I can
like a
corrupt
Job
somebody,
thing.
right? And God's like, all right, cool. No, God's like, no, I bet you can't. And the devil's like, yeah, but I get to choose who. And they're like, look at this asshole, like, news guy. Let's pick him. Like,
yeah. And I mean, Groundhog Day got dark too. Like the whole montage of him committing suicide, and then like the old homeless man that dies every single time. Oh,
no matter
he
what
tries
he
to
does.
help him. Oh my God, so heartbreaking.
Yeah, that's what kind of starts turning him to that, like, that release, and that like ultimately doing good, is that like he gets so frustrated. He decides to do good, and then he realizes like some things you just cannot change no matter what, you know. And it's a rough lesson, but he works through it, you know. It's kind of the same. That in and of itself is the same as that's a window of opportunity with the guy that starts the time loop because of his wife that died,
right?
And he just wants to have enough time to try to figure out how to see her again and everything. And so they have to have that like that moment at the end. Like, would you really, you don't want to watch her die over and over again. Like, you're not going to be able to fix this. So you just have to like come to terms with it. You have to grieve in a different way. So, is that it for Tropes episode?
I think that's it.
I think this is Tropes 101.
Yeah,
we probably have enough. We can like have tropes, you know, advanced tropes. Next one. Keep it rolling. It's been a fun conversation though.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. It was so nice to meet you.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me. Yeah,
of course.
You know, it's good to be. I wish I had. You can't see because it's on the computer. Well, I was going to be like, you could see my 3-5 short sticker, but it's on the back of the computer. Anyway, so whatever.
Because I gave you the whole pack, the whole gift.
It's also on my keys, but they're in the other room. It doesn't matter. The point is, a big fan of the show. I actually listen usually when I'm like traveling. I'll listen in big chunks.
Nice.
And I love. Thanks for having me on.
Of course,
it's been a pleasure. Yeah.
Well, since you do listen to us, then you know what has to happen at the end.
Absolutely.
And it's all on you, Akie.
What?
close the iris for us this episode in any way that you would like to.
Wait, how do I do this? I have to.
Really, you're gonna say close the iris.
Yeah.
You gotta pick a a way to do it. And take the time you need.
Who am I in this situation? Okay.
All right. That's why we're like, oh, thank God we have a guest this week.
Yeah. I really didn't think I would have to do this part. Okay. So wait, I wanted something to tie into tropes. I'm gonna say it's been a pleasure being on the show. My best to all your wonderful fans. But we do have an unscheduled off-world activation. I'm going to need you to close the iris.